I saw a magpie and I thought about the times that I've been swooped by a magpie, and I've got a couple of young kids and they've experienced it already. Yeah, I just thought, I wonder if anyone's made a game about that, because that's, a pretty iconic Australian experience. But yeah, if I was to describe it to someone, I'd say that it's a retro style, old school action arcade game where you play as an Australian magpie, swooping people, completing objectives, and trying to rack up a high score.
I noticed that the graphical style is sort of intentionally modeled after sort of those early Tony Hawk on like PlayStation 2 and that sort of thing. Is it tricky to like try to nail that specific aesthetic? I noticed on a recent TikTok you did the frame sort of frame blending motion blur that was common on the PlayStation 2. Like, is it harder to go for a specific older style versus more realism?
With the PS2, it's a little bit difficult because there's certain things that the PlayStation 2 did that modern software and at least the base software of the engine I'm using, which is Unity, doesn't really work the same way. So it's a little bit tricky, but if you do enough research and watch enough, videos of PlayStation 2 games, you can sort of emulate it. The difficulties of making it look like a PS2 game are definitely outweighed by the benefits of it looking like a PS2 game, in that I can keep the polygon counts low, which not only saves me development time when I'm 3D modeling, but also when it comes to porting the game on mobile or making sure it runs well on Switch or Steam Deck. The optimization's already sort of built in. I'm not going to have to reduce the quality. And yeah, it's an interesting balance as well, because the game, technically, that it's probably doing some things that the PlayStation 2 couldn't do, but I've always sort of gone by the mentality that you should emulate what people remember the console looking like, not necessarily exactly what the console looks like.
But I guess Australia as a whole, I think in the last few years, maybe 5-10 years, Australia's really emerged as like a really cool place for a lot of interesting indies to come out of with a lot of success.
Yeah, so there is a lot of other solo developers here. I try to make sure that I keep in touch with a lot of the game development community here, and we have a really good supportive community here. Like, we have a big community Discord group where anyone posts issues that they're having with their game or updates to get feedback. So the community is really great, and yeah, there's a lot of developers in Perth. As I said, not many bigger studios, but in terms of solo developers like myself and 2- and 3-person teams, there's actually a lot going on in WL, and where the community is really good, where it's sort of a we're all in it together sort of feeling, not we're all against each other.
What has the feedback been like from people so far?
Yeah, the feedback's been great. It's definitely the sort of game that lends itself well to player feedback and input. So especially with a lot of the leaning on the Australian culture and iconic Australian things. So I'll get a lot of, definitely my main audience is people in Australia, because I get a lot of those references. And so the response has been, a lot of people have great ideas for, you should have, Eshays smoking vapes in it, and you should have, tradies with meat pies. And because it's sort of a sandboxy sort of game, a lot of people can suggest a lot of ideas or even names for combos and attacks and level ideas, things to feature in the levels. So in terms of that engagement, it's been really good.
There's a piece of advice you could offer any other developers out there, or someone thinking about making their own game, what would it be?
My advice to other developers, particularly solo developers or small teams, is just get it done. The lessons you learn, particularly in the last, say, 10% of a game's production, where you're getting screenshots, you're making sure everything works properly, you're making sure save files work correctly, getting materials ready to upload to a Steam page, stuff like that. The lessons you learn in that actual release area are really, really valuable and crucial. And not to be a perfectionist. You know, if it works, it works. And I know that there's a lot of programmers that are much better than me that are going to cringe at hearing this, but as long as the person playing the game is experiencing it how they want to experience, whatever's going on behind the scenes doesn't matter. If you have to take some shortcuts or you write some code that you're not super happy with, but you get a product out the door, that's way better than perfecting over and over again and never actually releasing anything. And the lessons you'll learn from that project, you can then apply to your next one, but you're not going to be able to show anyone any of your work if you never actually finish it. So yeah, don't be a perfectionist.